So now let's go ahead and take a look at the iOS simulator that comes with Xcode and with the iOS SDK. So we've already launched the simulator before in our Hello World application, and you can see here that I've got an iOS simulator that's the iPhone Retina display running iOS 4.3.2. And the simulator is actually pretty powerful for what it can do for testing your applications. I did want to make a quick note of the difference between a simulator and an emulator. And there's a few different definitions that kind of float around, and there's some argument about what is what. But the most clear definition that I tend to stick to is that an emulator tries to duplicate the inner workings of a device, and a simulator tries to duplicate the behavior of the device. So when we're talking about software here, and in this case here, this simulator, as you can see, we are simulating all of the behavior of the real device. But what we're not doing is emulating the inner workings of the device. And this is important to keep in mind because this simulator is not actually trying to duplicate the same kind of processor and instruction set that is going to be on your iPhone or iPad. Whereas if you've used an emulator before, like if you've developed for Windows Mobile or something like that and you've launched the emulator is actually emulating the ARM processor or whatever the instruction set is for that particular device. And the reason why I bring this up when we're talking about the simulator here is just so you're aware that this is going to simulate and run the code, but it's not going to emulate the hardware perfectly. And because it's not emulating the hardware perfectly, it is not going to be satisfactory for testing your device only on the simulator. So let's take a quick look at some of the things the simulator can do here. So as you can see, it's simulating the full operating system and then the application. All of the code is actually being run on the simulator. It provides some emulator-like features. If we go through and we look at this menu, what we can do here, there's a few things. The hardware, we can change the hardware so that we can simulate the iPad, the iPhone, or the iPhone with the Retina display. So if I switch this to iPad, you'll see the resolution should change here. Okay, and you can see now this is behaving very much like an iPad. And then I can change this actually to the iPhone without the Retina display. And you get a little, it looks a little bit more like an iPhone. I think in the next version they'll probably update the Retina display to have this kind of look as well. I'll go ahead and switch that back to the Retina display here. And then you can also change the version of the OS that you have loaded on here. So I'm going to stick with the 4.3.2 on here. You can do rotations left and right. You can do, it's really easy to do it with holding on the command key, the Apple key, and you can flip your orientation real easily here so you can test orientation changes. You can do a shake gesture here, which would, if you had an application that respond to a shake, of course the home, and then you can activate the lock screen here. So we can slide to unlock this. So you've got a lot of the functionality. A memory warning, your application in some instances you might want to free up some extra memory if you get a memory warning. In-call status bar as if you're in a call. And then actually one really neat feature that I haven't had a chance to try out yet, but I want to try developing an app is with a TV out, and you can simulate actually a 720p out. So you could actually write applications that would utilize a TV out and be able to simulate it here. And that's pretty much all that the simulator does. Right now it doesn't have support for things like mocking your location. So if you want to do any kind of GPS or location services thing, you can't really send any location data to the simulator. So again, just to keep in mind here, it's a very useful tool. Definitely for starting out, you don't need to purchase an iPhone or an iPad. You can develop on the simulator. But like I said before, just to caution, it's not an emulator, and even if it was, you would still probably want to have real hardware. But especially because it's not an emulator, things like the way it handles memory and the speed and how it processes your code are gonna be a lot different. So it's because it's not trying to emulate. So that's all there is for iOS simulator and Xcode. And in the next module, we'll cover some Objective-C.